Alright, so this week we'll be working mostly on adding more passes of animation, more keyframes, not rushing to get everything done. That's the fundamental mistake people make. But trying to get our timing down. And as you can see, I have two characters, and the way I have this set up right now is I've got my movie cam that has my cuts, and I might change those, but I think they're working. And that's set up here. And so I have in my panels up here my movie cam, and then over to the right I've got my perspective cam. And the reason I have it this way, and let's go into our settings, I'm going to go right here. And in my settings I want to make sure that I update view all. And that basically means that what's going to happen is that as I'm scrubbing back and forth in my timeline, it's going to update all my cameras that I have, not just the one that I'm working in. And that's really important when I'm trying to do my animation, because this allows me to see what my camera shot looks like. And this one is my perspective camera, is my camera I can use to work and move things as I set keys. So as I'm going through, I can go around and make adjustments. These are how I jump back and forth from key to key. And I might decide, oh, you know what, right here, let me position this foot a little bit more like this for that key and press S without me messing up my camera angle and seeing what it looks like in my camera angle. Now I can't see it, so it's not that big of a deal in this shot. But it is something to think about, that I can actually move in this one and not this one. So you'll notice that I'm on version 5 and I only have this many keys. And so I'm really not trying to put a million keys down. This is keying the whole body just to get the block out. I haven't adjusted the fingers. I haven't adjusted the facial expression. I'm just getting the poses. And what I want to do is right click and go enable stepped preview. So when I look at stepped preview, ignore how the mouth is going to look messed up. But what's going to happen is in stepped preview, I'm going to see what the timing is of the keys that I've set, the poses. And you could see if I click on these arrows with the yellow lines, that's keyframe to keyframe. So you could see what my frames are. So you could see what poses I decided to put in. So if I play this from the beginning, look at this.
What are you talking about? You are Elastigirl! My God, pull yourself together!
Let's try that again. I'm going to hit this, and this should help from stuttering. This will cache it, basically putting the whole thing in memory.
What are you talking about? You are Elastigirl! My God, pull yourself together! What you do is...
So we can see stepped view is very choppy, but it allows me to see what those poses are. If I enable stepped preview right there, and I can turn this off right now, so that it's literally just keeping, it's not doing any splining. And what that means, let's switch this. Let me open up my graph editor for a second so you can see. So here's my graph editor. And what you can see is, oh, if there is Andy's body. Now, right now, this entire graph is in my presets. My presets are actually set under animation to, let's see, not animation, where are you? Not time slider. Yes, there we go. So basically, I have all these guys set, most of these set to the default. But what I do have is actually, if we go into, if I can find it, because there's so many menus. Not time slider, not this. Alrighty. Here we are. What I actually would have should do, I should have had this as weighted tangents, so that I can unweight them. And all that means is in my graph editor, that means that I'm able to grab these handles out if it's weighted. Okay, so I usually use weighted, and then the default tangent going in and out. It's using legacy, which is the old one, auto span in and out. Okay. What this basically means, I mean, hit save there, is that these are, you notice, are as curves. Now, up at the top, we have, and let's put our cursor, these are splines. So if I grab all of these are all the keys of the original Andy character, the one I'm primarily animating. And I could say, oh yeah, I want to have you as autotangent legacy. Or I want to have you as ease in, ease out, or rather ease in, mix. There we go. Oh, this is new. Autotangents custom. Let's see what that is. But I can make these all spline. I can make these linear, where it's just straight lines. And I can make them stepped. So the primary ones we're talking about is spline and stepped. All these are just variations and different ways of controlling the curves. When we're actually in here and we have this as stepped tangents, what that basically means, why are you set? No, not you. Stepped. I don't know why that's still highlighting. I think that's just a refresh issue. When I say stepped and I hit play,
Are you talking about?
what you can see is it stepped everything based off of this without me saying, let's turn that off. And you see everything is stepped because that's the way it is in my timeline.
Are you talking?
Now, if I go in and I say, oh, you know what? I want it all spline. Now you see it's all curves. Now, if I press play so you can see what that looks like, now you can see she's going and transitioning from one thing to the next.
You are Elastigirl! My God, pull yourself together! What were you doing? What are you talking about?
Now, as I go through, let me just undo a bunch of those. Go back to the way it was. Back. And the reason I'm doing that is because there are hold points that I have. Hold points are basically where you have two keys that are almost identical next to each other or identical to hold a position. So if I go back to the way I'd originally keyed it, she holds for a second, then she goes. Whoops, and let me. Sometimes you have to do this just to get a good cache, and that's the little blue line, meaning it'll save it to RAM because I'm recording and messing with animation and a bunch of other stuff. So let's try it now.
You talking about? You are Elastigirl! My God, pull yourself together! What were you doing?
So later on, what you're going to have to do is go into different body parts and start tweaking these out and adjusting these to get an ease in, ease out, or to adjust per appendage or per body part or whatever you're trying to fix or adjust. But for right now, in your first passes, this is what you should be doing. The quick and easy way is just double check by going enable stepped preview. And when you do that, that is when you basically can see, oh, when somebody says something here, what pose are they supposed to be in? And then I move the entire body with the character set on. And I press S once I position the entire body. And as you can see as I'm going through it, ignore, there's some little weird artifacts when you're doing step preview, but ignore that for right now. You can see I'm moving her feet, her hips. Ignore the little, that's just if I turn it off, it'll fix that. But you see how it looks in my camera shot, and that's what's important. And how she's expressing with these silhouettes. Then she looks, what are you talking about? And then she sees the apples and just decides she's going to start, wailing them at her, just like, you know, pull yourself together, and get that going. So later on, you will be jumping into there, but what you should be doing for your first few passes, A, not that many keyframes, get the good frames that you want. Move these guys back and forth, shift left mouse, drag them back and forth, shift left mouse, make them larger, smaller. Always remember after you move or scale them to right select them, right click and snap to make sure they're snapped into place. And just keep on doing that cycle. So this is a pretty good setup to have. I've got my camera that I have set for my frames, for my cuts, not a million shots. And then over here, I've got my working camera. And then I've got my channel box so that when I do eventually start to move things, or maybe I just want to move things back and forth, if I can't get to them in here, I can always go in here and move them by selecting the name and then middle mouse dragging to which one that I want. And a lot of times you'll have later on, you'll be able to do stuff like the foot roll and stuff and things like that. So just really getting in there, get those good poses just like your pose assignments. That's why we're doing them. So you can look at it, toggle back and forth between these, stepped and spline, just to see how it flows. Spline is important because now then you might decide you need to have a hold frame. And if I need a hold, it would be like, let's say I wanted her to hold um, this position here till here. So I'd go to where I want her in that position, middle mouse drag, and I can also middle mouse if I want her back in that position way over here. And then I just set a key, and then if it's between here and here, wherever it started, that's where it's going to hold from if that was the original key. So if it was like, oh, right here, I want her to hold, press S, you see she holds, and then she does it. It's a good idea to go a few frames over just so there's a little bit of motion so they don't look like they freeze entirely. But that's where the stepped and the splines come in. The first passes, it's just keying. Going in if you need to spline, and I chose um, weighted basically for my tangents. If you've already done it, which you should, if you already have your keys, and you are trying to change it weighted, then all you have to do, display, I'm just going to go to it here because I like this setup, and animation, excuse me, Windows, animation graph editor, choose the body for the whole thing, select all of them, and you can go to curves, set it as weighted tangents, And then just like for the ball, you can either break the tangents, like with this button, or free the tangent weights so that you can pull the handle out. So in other words, if I go to this one right here, you'll notice I can grab the handle, I can't pull it out, right? So if I grab all these, and then I say, oh, weighted tangents, now you see they have the little box. Now, there we go, now I can pull it in and out. Okay, so we have these tangents, free tangent length. This guy is basically freeing it so I can pull it out to affect the curve. And that's going to be very important later. So once again, if you've already got it and I can't pull that handle out and I'm trying to adjust it, select the body, grab all of them in the graph editor, curves, weighted tangents, and then click on this guy right here to free the tangent weights.